Yo, what's going on? Happy Friday out there, family. I appreciate y'all tuning in, spending this Friday night with your boy. We are going to talk about a few key topics, but the one I thought that was most important was the actual thumbnail. So we're going to dive into that in a little bit. If you're new to the channel, I'm Marcus, DFD, the Debt Free Dad. We talk attorney reactions, finance related content, just whatever's trending, whatever in the news. I give my attorney reaction and take on it. If you get some value out of this, like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good stuff is definitely appreciated. A shout out to everybody, the over 17,000 subscribers to the channel. I definitely appreciate the support, and a round of applause for the first comment of the night. I appreciate it. Bo Fleming, what is going on with you tonight? Now, this is going to be an interesting one because there's a few topics. Oh, disclaimer: licensed attorney, not your attorney, not financial or legal advice. Because there's a few topics that are related to what's going on with Diddy, but one topic is a broader topic about whether Diddy should be in this situation for what is alleged in the first place, like sex crime. Like, should it be a real thing? The first thing I want to do, because it's kind of video heavy tonight, but I want to show this short video, is a minute long, is a little bit about the prison where Diddy is being held. In the last video, we talked about how Diddy tried to play the privilege card. We talked about how Diddy tried to play the privilege cards and create his own prison, so to speak, for purposes of getting bail. And the court was like, nah, fam, we not doing that. But the meat and potatoes of this is going to be about Gene Deal. That's why I made Gene Deal the thumbnail. Let me know in the comments if y'all know who Gene Deal is. Long story short, Gene Deal used to be Diddy's bodyguard. I believe his primary, head bodyguard. And Gene Deal has been running around doing interviews on Vlad TV, The Art of Dialogue. We're going to watch a very few short clips from his most recent one. And I love his interviews. I always watch Deal's interviews because I like hearing all the interesting stories. Wolverine, what's good, brother? So I appreciate Gene Deal's interviews and his guidance, and some of his stories about what he's seen as Diddy security is chief of security is wow. But the thing that I've been thinking about as I listen to his story, two videos posted today from the Art of Dialogue. Shout out to them. If you aren't familiar, go check out that channel. And the question came up is, one, should Gene Deal actually be doing these interviews? I don't know what the going rate for these interviews are, but one, is it financially worth it? Because in two short videos that were released today, he did one thing about one statement that was probably 3 seconds long. He actually implicated himself in the conspiracy. And the second statement that was about 4 seconds long, he actually made it easier for the feds to prove Diddy's RICO charge. So we're going to dive into that on the back end, but let's go ahead and take a look at the prison where Diddy's staying at, where he's being currently housed, because we got to know a little bit about the prison, the background, before we dive into the other stories. I got 55 screens up here trying to keep all these stories straight for y'all. Let's turn that volume up.
Sean Diddy Combs is locked up in a federal jail that has been plagued by harsh conditions and violence. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn has seen multiple deaths in recent years. An inmate was stabbed to death in July, and several others have died by suicide. It's these reasons, among others, that Combs' lawyers are fighting to get him out of there. They want him released on bail rather than being kept in jail while he awaits trial on sex trafficking charges. Combs is just the latest high-profile defendant to be locked up at MDC Brooklyn. Before him, there were R. Kelly, Elaine Maxwell, and crypto scammer Sam Bankman-Fried. Maxwell complained about her treatment at the facility, which included round-the-clock checks in the wake of her associate Jeffrey Epstein's jail suicide. A few years ago, a week-long power outage in the dead of winter left detainees in drab, cold conditions. Judges have also raised alarms. They've pressed the Bureau of Prisons for status updates and implored the agency to fix things. One judge even refused to send some defendants to the jail. For now, Combs is one of about 1,200 people locked up at MDC Brooklyn. He's the highest profile detainee at a place that's been described as hell on earth.
Hey, I know prison conditions can be terrible, but hey, it's a double-edged sword. Like, okay, you gotta have a place that's a livable facility, but it's prison, bro. Like prison isn't designed to be fucking Club Med. Part my language. It's just not designed to be Club Med. I can remember as a defense attorney, the courthouse was on block A, the local jail was on block C, and anytime I go over there to see my client, all I heard was and I was like, damn, they in there hooping like shit. they was playing basketball all the time. They had like flat screen TVs on the wall. Now, I'm sure a lot of aspects of prison suck, but I mean, it's prison. Like, this is what you have to expect. And this spins off onto the next video because apparently, Diddy, hey, when people go to prison, it messes with their mental. And just imagine the drop from being able to do essentially whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, good or bad, to now you're 23 and 1, 23 lockdown, 1 hour out. You probably got to be segregated because everybody in there trying to whip your ass. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. So it looks like that Diddy is on like a mandatory suicide watch. Now, this isn't essentially what happens. I don't know if y'all all know this, but most prisons, I can't speak for all, but most prisons, most jails that I've seen, when an inmate comes in, they actually kind of create a psychological profile of each inmate to kind of get some background. And like, this person with this background may be inclined to try to harm himself or harm others, but they create that psychological profile. Then, based on what they find, they may say, you know what, we're going to put him in a safety protocol and take his shoelaces out. You don't have no shoelaces. You walk around with flops, no shoelaces in, because they don't want people to try to, take themselves out, delete themselves. So he's kind of in this standard protocol. Let's go ahead and cue up this next video that actually talks about this. So many videos.
Is now under a procedural suicide watch in a New York City jail as he awaits trial on 3 felony counts tied to years of alleged sexual abuse and racketeering. It's a graphic and disturbing case that has sent shockwaves across the country. Prosecutors say they've already talked to dozens of victims and witnesses. Combs has been in jail since Monday, as you know. Just 48 hours ago, he lost his appeal for bail. His lawyers could try again to get him out before his trial. Let's bring in NBC's Chloe Malas. Sorry, I know who you are, Chloe.
Kelly's nice, though, too.
Sorry, we don't typically ask this of suspects accused of these kinds of crimes, but he is a celebrity. Have you heard what the jail conditions are for him right now?
So, Tom, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious, and this is an issue that his legal team is having. They're saying it's not fit for someone to be held for pre-detention ahead of trial.
I call cap on that. There's a lot of people there being held pre-detention before trial. No rich man privilege in the law. Well, there is, but unfortunately, it doesn't apply to Diddy. There is a rich, wealthy man privilege in the law, but it's not going to apply to you, Sean Combs.
I'm going to tell you, read you some of the reporting that NBC News has done in the last couple days on this jail. It has been the scene of 2 fatal stabbings in 2 months over the summer. And in April, MS-13 gang members, they stabbed an inmate 44 times in a shocking attack that was caught on camera. So we know that he's under procedural suicide watch. His team just released a statement saying that he is strong and he's looking forward to his defense. We do know that they want to move him to New Jersey, to a different jail there as he awaits trial, this could all take up to a year. So, this detention center has also housed some other famous celebrity inmates: Michael Cohen, Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly. And this jail, Tom, I will say, it's gotten criticism for overcrowding, food contamination, outside of just the violence. So clearly this is a jail that's come under a microscope and a lot of scrutiny.
And when is he scheduled to next appear in court?
So not until October 9th. And as you can imagine, there are going to be a lot of pretrial motions, discovery, and hearings leading up to trial. I mean, right now there is one sex trafficking accuser. in the indictment. And we know that the U.S. Attorney's Office, Tom, had said that they are leaving the door open for more potential arrests and that they urged everyone in a press conference earlier this week to please come forward if you have any information. So I could see this getting even bigger and then perhaps maybe bringing another indictment along the way. But again, Combs, he says via his attorney that he is innocent of these allegations and he's ready to fight it all.
Okay, Chloe, thank you. Again, this is a procedural suicide watch, but if you or someone you know is struggling and they need some help, it's available. The National Suicide Hotline is on your screen right there. You can dial 988 for help.
Thanks for.
All right, so we know that this dude is in the jail. We know that he's in not to mention the location, but the mental. Anytime you're in a place where you could presumably find yourself potentially fucked up, because normally in life, not all the time, but generally in life, you can control the level of opportunities you have to kind of get fucked up. Okay. Normally we understand random stuff happen. You could be a random victim, but generally there's a lot of control. Like, okay, I'm not going to engage in crazy stuff. I'm not going to go to crazy places at crazy times. A lot of decisions you make when you're just have a little bit of freedom on the outside can greatly reduce the opportunity for you to get your ass whipping or have some terrible thing happen to you. But when you're in like a place like prison, you don't control any of that. You could get literally fucked up at most opportunities, even though you're not doing anything wrong. Now that could happen in normal life, but at a much lower level and a much lower chance of exposure. So I definitely understand, and I also think that I don't think it's a different. Everybody try to compare and say that, well, he went from being a super billionaire to now he's incarcerated. Try being someone who has their freedom, who makes minimum wage, to being incarcerated. The shit is hard no matter. It's hard and it sucked no matter what your income was previously. That's just my thought on it. So I don't think that the level of luxury that he had increases his mental decline or risk for potential self-harm. I just don't think that's the case. I agree. It's different. Having money and having power and having like real power, two different things. I think that's a fair statement. Yeah, prison and the 4 seasons of comfort, room service, available. Ask Warden for the latest price sheet, subject to your personal checkbook balance. Let's see. He knows that it's time to pay for the play. And I agree. I do think there's some level of protection and custody that he could presumably purchase, which is what he allegedly did when he would travel to Los Angeles. He like, hey, gangs out here, look out for your boy while I'm out in these streets. But that shit is unsustainable. I mean, even if you got billions of dollars, he's about to lose a lot of that just going through this actual process. But before we dive into the other videos, what is y'all position on this? Okay, because shout out to my guy Wolverine. He put me onto a good content creator I was looking at, and we were talking about. Now I give my opinion on this based because these are actual crimes. So my opinion comes from just a legal perspective of analyzing. This is what the prosecution is going to do. This is what the defense is going to do. This is where person A jacked up. This is where person B messed up. But let's just kind of run it back. Sex workers flown in from out of state. So they're traveling interstate from state A to state B to engage in activities, and they actually got compensation. Should that actually be a crime in the first place? Okay, that's an actual much broader question. Should that be criminal if you fly someone out and they make an arrangement? Should that be something that's criminal? Hey, there's a lot of places you go over to Amsterdam, Germany. Hey, all of that stuff is legal. It's legal. It's regulated by the government. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. It actually could be a much safer transaction doing that than actually going to the club and just meeting some girl or some gentleman at the club. And that could actually be a much safer transaction because of the regulation in place, because of the government mandated testing. So we know it's illegal here, but should it actually be illegal if male prostitute A agreed to travel to New York to go to Diddy party to use a couple of oils of baby oil, a couple of vials of baby oil, and some drugs and engage in all of this stuff? Everybody agreed to that transaction. He set a price. Diddy and his team paid that price. Should that actually be something that's illegal? Is that not two adults who came to some consensual agreement as to this is what it should be, and that, in fact, what it was? And you can't get any do-overs. You were there, you enjoyed the 2 days, you agreed to the 2 days on the front end. Now, 2 years later, 3 years later, that everybody brings it up, you like, oh man, I don't know about that 2 days. Day one, maybe I agreed to, but day two, I don't know. I was under the influence. Should that even be illegal in the first place? Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. I mean, it's actually debatable because I'm be honestly, like, I probably would err on the side of like, why are we wasting resources arresting prostitutes? Like, I personally, I tend to look at it as a victimless crime, more or less. Now, it does depend on a few factors. There could be some victims out there. There's probably some people who getting finessed out there and all of that stuff. But what do y'all think about that? I think he is only asset rich. I agree with that because the 50, I mean, if you're a billionaire, presumably you think $50 million is nothing, but he had to put up his house because nobody's just going to be set. He's not Scrooge McDuck. He's not going to have like a money bin. So I definitely agree with that. I thought it was called Club Fed. Nah, that's not Club Fed. That prison that's actually kind of a local prison that has a contract with the federal government, and the federal government house their inmates who have federal trials in the Southern District of New York there until they win, lose, or draw, and then they ship them off to actual prison. Only legit if they give consent. If they are comatose, it's beyond legal. And that's why I specifically said, because I can see how this sounds wild, but I can see how night one could be consensual, but night two may be a little problematic. You know what I mean? Night one, I was like, less candor to the tribunal. Consent can be withdrawn at any given time. The same way as, well, probably not in this particular context, but if you say, yeah, you can search my car, officer, then you're like, no, I changed my mind. Presumably, that officer stood stop and be like, okay, he retracted his consent. I'm not going to search. But that's generally not how it happens. But I do agree that night one, agreement is made between party A and party B, fly out to perform these services for this day. A moves out there, he flies out there, he performs his services, he gets his compensation. Night two roll around, drugs, under the influence, whatever it is, alcohol, Tunchi, whatever the damn drugs are that these rich folks are using. Night two could probably is a lot more arguable, but generally, I mean, I can see both sides of the argument because it is possible for a person to be held against their will. And if there's actual evidence that, this person was held against their will, they wanted to leave and they couldn't, I don't think anybody would disagree that, yes, that's completely wrong. But I don't know. Sex worker flown out. They got their compensation. Day one go by. Day two go by. They get their IV. They get flown back home. And it's never brought up again. I mean, there's some debate. Actually, look, there are actual constitutional arguments that scholars have made why crimes such as this should be legal. And they were like not just a happenstance. They were based in like, hey, if we make it, it's a person's right to the body. It's the same premise that women use. It's the same argument that women use when you discuss abortion. Hey, my body, my right. They make that same position for these type of arguments. So it's definitely an interesting discussion. They probably didn't agree to be filmed. Now, I agree with that because I just don't think that. I mean, there probably was a few of them, but generally, I'm thinking his filming was something that was done surreptitiously. Cameras, cameras in the light fixture and in the lamp and in the cuckoo clock and stuff like that. So I definitely think that changes the dynamic. But just from on this fact pattern alone, Diddy hires sex worker to come from California to New York. They agree to a price. Sex worker comes. Sex worker knows that this party is going to be 1 or 2 days. Okay, let's just say that's the agreement. Hey, you know how our parties are over here, Playboy. It's going to be 1 or 2 days. Sex worker agrees, flies out, does this 1 or 2 day thing, goes back on Diddy's dime. Is that criminal? Should that really be criminal? I don't know. Like I see both sides, and I'm probably on the side of unless there's evidence to show that this person was held against their will outside of what the original contractual terms were. uh, I don't know how many resources I like using to punish those type of crimes. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if an officer is out here being an undercover to catch some John who's soliciting prostitute, I'm like, bro, go solve a murder. It's plenty of murders and real crimes going on. Go solve one of those. That's actually kind of my position. But it's a nuanced thing because the fact patterns could be different. Again, the filming adds a different aspect. The amount of the intoxication, the inebriation changes the dynamic because once you're so intoxicated, courts have held that you can't give consent because you don't have the mental capacity to actually give consent. So it's an interesting I don't know. I think it's an interesting argument that could go both ways. What's going on, Common Sense Hour? Shout out to everybody in the chat for tuning in. Now, before we get on Gene Deal, I thought this was a hilarious video because a former warden gave Diddy a warning, and he pretty much said, "Watch your back." I don't know. Have you all ever heard of Big Herc? He is a guy on YouTube who has a channel. I think his channel is called Locked Up. But Big Herc, his name is indicative of how he looked. A guy who got locked up at I think like 16 to 17, and he got out. And his content, he has like a ministry now, but a lot of his content is people ask him questions about like what's going on and what will happen to this person in custody. And if you want to see an interesting discussion on this, you should definitely check out Big Herc's channel. All right, let's go ahead and cue up this article real quick. There's going to be discussions in this video of Diddy getting a warning from a former warden, and we're going to hear, because this is just what we talk about, a new sex worker is willing to tell his story to the government. I don't think his story is going to be that important. I'm going to tell you why as soon as we jump in. Let's go ahead and cue this up. Man, I wish there was a way where I could load all of these videos back to back to back. So I just had them locked in sync. All right, let's go ahead and get into this one.
All right, we're getting into the debrief and the very latest on Sean Diddy Combs' arrest on sex trafficking crimes. TMZ is reporting that at least 2 new people plan to cooperate with the feds, and they're willing to testify in front of the grand jury.
All right, joining us now with the details, Charles Latibaudier, TMZ executive producer. Charles, thanks so much for being here with us. Obviously, it's been a very busy week in this case. What's the latest with the investigation?
Yes, Steve and Bianca, as U.S. Attorney Damian Williams promised earlier this week, he said this is an ongoing investigation and that they will be speaking to more people. We found out that these 2 individuals, and we have actually spoken to one of them. They are both sex workers, currently sex workers. One of them says that they had an interaction with Diddy in 2014.
That's the reason why I don't care about anything that this guy has to say. 2014, this is 2024. We talked about it on the last live. For purposes of RICO, you have to have, the government has to prove essentially a criminal organization conspiring to do something, to overact in the furtherance of, and 2 criminal events in the furtherance of within a 10-year period. So 2014, I really don't care about anything that guy has to say. Even if I'm the prosecutor, I would talk to the guy. I would listen. I might find other persons who have more current interaction. But you had an interaction with him 2014, which is probably 10 years ago. By the time this go to trial, it'll be over that 10-year period. So I'm really less concerned with this guy. But I would talk to him, but I really don't care. And if anything, like, hey, if this was actually a fair world, let's say this occurred in 2020. If this was actually a fair world, this guy should be getting charged with prostitution as well. But hey, it is what it is. But his discussion is of no consequence to me legally, just because of the age of it. I wouldn't be too concerned with it.
And they are willing to tell the feds what they know about that interaction. And another one said that they are willing, and not only willing, but have been subpoenaed to go before the grand jury. So the second person could end up going before the grand jury. At this stage, they are just going to be interviewed by prosecutors. Clearly, they're trying to figure out what these other witnesses know and how they can help them convict Diddy, and that's the name of the game at this point for the feds.
Yeah.
The question is if there is going to be a jury, because yesterday you reported that a former warden had a warning for Diddy that he should watch his back in prison. Yeah.
Look, this is, he's going to be in this at Brooklyn, MDC Brooklyn. Who knows? It could be up to a year before this trial begins. And obviously, they're going to be, his attorneys have said that they're going to try to get him moved to a different facility. But for now, he's in there. And what we've been told by a former warden is he's a target. That's the fact of the matter. And that's why they have him in a solitary part of the jail, because they don't, he becomes a target because it's like what we've been told, it's like a badge of honor that if you were able to inflict some violence on Diddy, that gets you score points with other inmates. So,
yeah, I think the biggest concern for him, personally, I'm no expert in prison life or being incarcerated, but I think the biggest concern for him is exactly what he's charged with. I think he would have to pay for protection, and paying for protection means you pay us not to whip your ass. I think that's his. You pay us not to whip your ass or violate you. I think that would be his biggest concern. So he's going to have to stay in ADSEG segregated until he actually go to trial and to the conclusion of the trial. I don't think there's any way they could put him in general population. It would not end well for him. As powerful and tough as he is, this dude isn't prison tough. He isn't jail tough. Like, you can tell he's not jail tough. It's a whole different type of toughness when you have resources versus what all your resources can't really do much for you in here. You know what I mean? It can, but anybody could get got. And in jail, that's like multiplied times 10.
That's a situation that obviously the jail officials do not want to happen. So they're going out of the way to make sure that doesn't happen. He is in a really, can you imagine like the lap of luxury that Diddy's been used to for decades now? And then just like that, he is now in this jail. And unless they can get him bail at some point, he's going to be behind bars for a long time.
And just briefly, what's going on behind the scenes in Hollywood? All these people who partied with him, who might be on these hidden tapes. What level of panic are you hearing from all these people we know who associated with him over the years?
I will tell you, Steve, we are not hearing any panic because no one, and this has been true since the raids, really. Nobody people who we know Diddy. We've seen them at his parties. And I'm not talking about the freak offs. I mean, we haven't seen any of that video, though. Remember, the feds say they do have video that they seized during the raids from those freak offs. So they know who the celebrities are if they're already involved in the freak offs. But we've seen plenty of video over the years of Diddy's very public parties. And all those people, they're not saying anything. They haven't for months. And yes, to your point, there certainly got to be people who are nervous about getting a call from the U.S. Attorney's Office, whether it be to come in as a witness, whether it be just to be interviewed to find out what they know, or go before the grand jury, which is something nobody wants to do. They'll want to be away from this case as much as possible.
I feel like we're certainly just scratching the surface on this case. Let's talk about something else happening right now. You're reporting today that Lady Gaga's dad just endorsed Trump, calling him.
We don't want to hear about that. We don't care about Lady Gaga or her dad. But let me go to some of the comments real quick. Blackmail to do services against their will when confronted. Definitely criminal. That's another wrinkle. Shout out Enrique. That's another wrinkle that, if added to the general fact pattern that I provided, would make it a much different situation. I really think that Puff beating up Cassie on camera is the real reason he got arrested. I think the real reason he got arrested is Cassie talking about all of the parties. That's the reason he got arrested. Him actually doing that on camera was a part of it, but it's the smaller part of it. Because I guarantee you, like, do y'all actually think like Puff hit J-Lo? It ain't no way. it's no way. Y'all let me know what y'all think. But he ain't stupid. He picked and choose who he could get away with and who he couldn't. I guarantee you he didn't put his hands on J-Lo. There ain't no way in the world. I think if he'd have put his hand on J-Lo, this would have happened a whole lot sooner. Dealing with the feds, they don't have to divulge what Puffy really is, and that's true. They don't have to. They can put him anywhere. He could be actually in the jail in Jersey. But I don't know. I just think that extra witnesses are going to come forward. They said one person may go to the grand jury, so I'm assuming that one person who may get called before the grand jury, subpoenaed to testify, probably had a transaction that is more recent, preferably within that 10-year window, so that conduct would qualify to satisfy the at least two conducts that are needed to make sure that RICO case stick. The guy who had conduct in 2014 is just information gathering thing. We just need to talk to this guy, get information, see if he can lead us to something else more current. But I'm genuinely less concerned if I'm Diddy's attorney with that particular guy. Now, this is where this video is going to get interesting, because we got to talk about self-snitching, right? I don't know. I think it started in Baltimore back in the day, but I remember the whole Stop Snitching movement came out, and they had like a Stop Snitching t-shirt, and it was a really big thing. It was in Baltimore, because I remember state witnesses were getting like their house fire bombed. This shit was absolutely fucking crazy, really. And so they had this whole Stop Snitching campaign, and you all let me know. But within the Black community, there's always this argument on what's snitching. Like, people see criminal activity in their neighborhood and they don't tell. Now, if I see some shit happen, I'm telling, because I'm a civilian. It's not snitching if I tell. And that's just how it is. Snitching, for my definition, is two people engaging in wrong conduct. They get caught, and one person tells on another or another wrongdoer. So if you're not a wrongdoer, I don't think it's actually defined as snitching. I think you're just actually doing what the fuck you probably should do. Now, I do understand there's some fear of consequences and repercussions from talking to authorities. I get that and I understand that. But it's one thing to snitch. It's another thing to actually snitch on yourself. And it's another thing to do it in the form of an interview or writing a book. Now, we are all familiar, and if you aren't familiar with Keefe D, he got arrested for Tupac's murder 22 years later. And literally, the biggest piece of evidence was him writing a book and going on multiple interviews, telling his role in this homicide. I don't know if he didn't talk to an attorney before he did any of these interviews or wrote the book. Somebody should have told him there is no statute of limitations for murder. So you can get picked up and arrested for that indefinitely. And so I'm generally not a fan of, I don't know, if you engage in illegal conduct, you probably shouldn't go on any platform and just talk about it as a matter of course. But there's some situations that are different. I think Gene Deal's situation is a little bit different, because I don't I don't think that he knows his conversations with Vlad and on the Art of Dialogue implicate him in actual criminal activity. So, and I was going to put this poll question up, but if you're a multi-billionaire or you're wealthy and you have some resources, the three people who are generally going to know the most about everything that you do, good, bad, ugly, is probably going to be your executive assistant, like a Farnsworth Bentley type of character, the driver of your limo, whoever drives your limo is going to know all the secrets. And then the third person is probably going to be your security. That whoever's the head of your security, that one security personnel you have who's with you 24/7. Isn't that your girlfriend? Isn't that your mom? Because people going to lie to them all the time. But your driver, your executive assistant, your head of security, they going to know where all the bodies are buried. So to do interviews on a show for a paycheck is really setting you up to go to prison. And I don't know if anyone ever told them this. And so these literally are two videos that dropped. Let me see when these videos drop. This video dropped 1 day ago, and it got 529,000 views. And the other one dropped 9 hours ago, and it's 153,000 views. So, do we want to go with the video that implicates him first in the conspiracy, or do we want to go to the video that makes Diddy's RICO case easier to prove? Let's see. Let's go with the self-implication video first, because this one is actually kind of funny. Let's go with the video that came out 9 hours ago that Gene Deal did. Let's see. The title to the video is hilarious too. Gene Deal reveals what Diddy require him to carry for female and male encounters. Now, if you haven't, y'all go check out the Art of Dialogue. It's actually a good channel, and Gene Deal gives some great interviews. But if I was his attorney, I would be like, bro, stop talking, because you may get a first-class ticket to Incarcerationville. Now, before we click this, I want y'all to know what his position is, because I've seen multiple videos. He had another video where he talked about a crazy interaction that he witnessed with Ja Rule and Diddy. He had another a video where he talked about how Diddy treated J-Lo different from all the other females who weren't celebrities because they didn't have power. So he got some pretty interesting content. But his position is Diddy has done all of this ill stuff, right? But he never done any of it in front of him. Now, hey, shout out to Eugene Deal, but I'm going to call cap on that. There's no way anybody who will run out of their hotel butt naked with a towel on, knowing there's cameras, to do some shit like that, if they don't got a regard for the cameras in the hotel, it ain't no way in the world Gene Deal can get me to believe that Diddy was like, I'm going to be a terrible person around everybody else, but when I'm around you, my security, who's probably with me 24/7, I'm not going to let you see that side of me. That just doesn't make sense. And I'm going to show you a video where it proves that doesn't make sense. But Deal's position is Diddy engaged in a lot of crazy stuff, but he never saw it. It never happened around him. I call cap on that. Now, let's take a look at this video. Now, I know the Art of Dialogue, they're going to be like, oh, man, watching this is... but Gene Deals reveals what Diddy required him to carry for female and male encounters. Now, we're only going to watch about 10 seconds of this video, but the one thing that he says Diddy wanted him to carry implicated him in the conspiracy to have all of these freak-offs, which is the main point of this entire criminal litigation.
Somebody up, or he going to Kim or whatever like that, you know, he'd be like, yo, y'all got any condoms? So I was one of those dudes. I used to keep condoms in my truck for him, because we never knew when this dude was going to say, yo, I need a condom. And then you could be getting off of work and he could have company and everything like that, and he'll say, yo, I need condoms. So we used to keep boxes of condoms for them.
Go ahead and introduce yourself into the conspiracy. The underlying crime at issue is sex trafficking, and it's sex trafficking. And we already talked about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil that Diddy had in his home that was confiscated. And now this guy on a big time YouTube platform that got over 120,000 views in 9 hours said, "Hey, I was responsible for bringing boxes of condoms." He didn't say one or two. I was responsible for bringing boxes of condoms. To me, as an attorney, if I were on the prosecution side, I'm like, boxes of condoms. You know what that goes with? 1,000, 1,000 vials of Astroglide. So, but literally, him making that statement just implicated himself in the conspiracy. Like, hey, I'm just the guy who went and purchased all those damn bottles of lube has culpability equal to the person who brings the drugs, has culpability equal to the person who brings the condoms to the party, and the person who brings the condoms looked like, hey, it looked like it was Gene Deal. I'm just saying, y'all let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think that that was light, or do y'all think that that was something that actually implicated him? So, from a prosecution standpoint, I'm definitely talking to this guy. He's the bodyguard, and he just implicated himself. And even if you think that that implication is light, like there's no difference. There's no difference between the guy who's going to pay prostitutes money to come to the event versus the person who goes to CVS and buys everything on the lubrication aisle for the party, or this guy who goes buy everything and boxes of condoms from Costco's or Sam's Club or BJ's or wherever he going to bring to the party. There's no difference. Each person in each of those scenarios are engaged in an overt act that's in the furtherance of the actual crime, and the crime is the sex trafficking, and the sex trafficking is tied to these events where some people may have engaged in potentially encounters against their will without being able to give consent. So this dude just, I don't know. Hey, I agree. I think I was actually like, hey, shout out to that guy for trying to be safe. Like, I agree, but he literally just implicated himself in this entire thing, unbeknownst to him. I don't know how much he got paid for this interview, but it definitely wasn't worth it in 10 seconds. Yeah. We'll never know all the truth about all these freak off parties. Diddy learn from his mentors? He just took it to another level for personal gain. He doesn't deserve any sympathy. I agree. I agree he doesn't deserve any sympathy. And it's funny because I just saw I can't even think of the old what's the old crusty white music is that? Clive Davis. I just saw a video of Clive Davis, and they were asking him what did he think about Diddy. And Clive Davis played the good old I'm old, see now. He was like, who? Who? I don't know who you talking about. Chafing syndrome is a real medical condition. Yeah. Hey, hey man, Diddy got all of his supplies in bulk. Hey, he was trying to be fiscally conservative, I guess. Yeah. Sounds like he knew what was going on to me. I agree. His position has always been, I didn't know what's going on. He didn't do this stuff around me. But if I'm bringing a pallet full of condoms and a wheelbarrow full of lube, it sounds like I have some inclination of what's going on at these parties. Now let's take a look at this second video, because this second video actually proves a few things. First, it makes the claim that Diddy is. It makes it easier for the prosecution to prove their RICO case against Diddy. That's number one. Number two, it lead me to believe that Gene Deal might be capping about what he didn't know. He said he didn't do these things in front of me. That seems disingenuous. And the third thing it proves is exactly what I said yesterday. Somebody on one of the videos in the comments, They wanted to know, well, how did Diddy know what witnesses to call? And I was like, he don't have no leak list of who the witnesses are. Like, if I know I'm being investigated for drug trafficking, I'm gonna call everybody who I probably traffic drugs with. Like, yo, son, they on me, man. Hey, make sure you gonna call everybody. So he didn't have a list. He's just calling everybody he knew who were at these parties that were occurring. And the people he's calling are going to be the people who are probably going to be the witnesses. That's just kind of how that goes. Yeah, Diddy put in the XHS videos at crisis. Astroglide was becoming an endangered species. It was a lubricant shortage in the porn industry. All right, let me go ahead and cue up this next video real quick. And this next video actually goes to what the judge's biggest issue was that I think in the bond hearing that we talked about yesterday, which I think his attorneys completely missed. Let's go ahead and pull this up. All right, so the Gene Deal reveals Diddy desperately tried to reach out to him to silence him from speaking. All right. Now, just the title of this video alone, it goes to show me that Gene Deal saying that Diddy did stuff, but not in front of him is a lie. Like I'm gonna just call cap on it, because if I know you didn't see anything, why the hell would I call you? I wouldn't care if I wouldn't call anybody who couldn't implicate me in anything, because I have no reason to talk to you. They can talk to you and they aren't going to get anything because you don't know anything. So just the title alone proves to me that Gene Deal was an integral part in seeing something. He's seen something going on, because that's the only reason that Diddy is actually trying to reach out to you. That's point number one. So I think Gene may be a little bit disingenuous in what he saw, and he may be a little disingenuous in what he saw, but I think more importantly, I don't think he realizes how his conduct could be seen as an overt act in the furtherance of the conspiracy. That's an issue that we're going to set aside. The second issue here is, okay, the judge was very adamant about contacted witnesses. The defense just kept talking about he's selling his plane. He relinquished his passports, which was capped because he just gave them to his attorney. And I'm sure if he wanted them, the attorney would give them back or be like, somebody broke in my house and stole the passports. But the judge was really specific. His overall biggest concern was interfering with the witnesses. Interfering with the witnesses won't allow for a legitimate legal process. Witness tampering is a big no-no. So the judge was really concerned about that. And this actually shows that, hey, the judge's assertion was right, and he made the right call in not giving Diddy a bond, because, as Gene is about to say, like, yo, this dude tried to reach out to me. And that furthers the judge's position was correct in not giving this bond, because he has a habit of witness tampering. And I think the last thing that this clip is going to show is, remember, when we talk about a RICO, it has to be a group or an enterprise, a group of two or more people conspiring to commit a criminal crime. They do an overt act in the furtherance of, and there are underlying criminal offenses that can be proven two or more within a 10-year period. And witness tampering is a federal crime. And Gene Deal just doing this interview, saying what he's about to say for 5 seconds, literally just implicated Diddy in another crime for federal witness tampering, because he reaching out to somebody who is likely a witness who has information. So Gene Deal did a lot of things that weren't productive for himself, and damn sure weren't productive for Diddy. And it was a short second. He did it in 7-10 seconds. Let's see.
He was trying to get in contact.
Let me rewind it back a little bit.
Yes, Diddy.
She ain't the only one he was trying to get in contact with. You understand? He sent somebody through somebody else to try to get in contact with me, telling me enough is enough. Oh, okay. You tell Big Mama that enough is enough. You can't tell Wolf Mama enough is enough. You tell D Ferg Mama enough is enough.
So this dude in literally like 3 seconds, he made it easier for the prosecution to prove the RICO charge. he just essentially said that Diddy engaged in federal witness tampering because he made this communication at a time when he knew the investigation was already underway. I mean, like, this is terrible on so many levels. And I honestly would love to know how much this dude actually got paid. I would like to know. I would actually, I'm sorry, I was reading the comment. I would actually know how much he got paid to do these interviews. I'm going to see if I could Google it and find out. he depleted the Crisco shelf at Walmart. I see, but that was because Johnson was out producing the baby a little faster. That's hilarious. Did he contribute to oil inflation? That's hilarious. Gene is not a bright soul. Yeah, he reminds me of the senator played by Burt Reynolds in the movie Striptease. Yeah, I remember that. That's hilarious. Let me see. I want to see what the Art of Dialogue interview is paying. Because now he already implicated himself in the crime and the conspiracy. Let's see. We're going to see how much the Art of Dialogue is paying for interviews. Dialogue. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, here you go. Man, they pulling it in. The Art of Dialogue. Man, they pulling it in. I'm trying to see. Okay, I think we might got something here. That can't be right. If Gene Deal went and implicated here, I bet if Gene Deal went, let me see. Contact us. Okay, according to what they have on Google, it says that the Art of Dialogue and shows like that are paying anywhere from $5 to $15 or $20,000 per interview. So this dude for maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000, the flight out there to do the interview, just implicated himself in the crime. Just got another crime that's really easy to convict on Diddy now, another federal witness tampering charge, and made it easier for his RICO case. So I think is a few takeaways that we can get from our good buddy Gene Deal over here. Number one is it's not always in your best interest to talk about what you know because you don't know how that shit could be used against you. Don't go out writing books. Don't go out and do interviews. If you actually are going to write a book about something that's like, oh, my time in the mafia or when I worked for Lucky Luciano, like, you, one, probably shouldn't do it. But two, if you do it, you might want to have a conversation with an attorney just to be like, yo, what can I say or what can I say that won't jam me up for some type of exposure? Because think about it. It's a 10-year look back window. So Gene Deal is possibly thinking that, yo, some of this stuff that I did is so old, is no statute of limitations. But the statute of limitations for that crime, if it was just charged by itself, could have expired. But the 10-year statute of limitation for that RICO charge that Diddy's about to eat is a 10-year window. You can have a crime in there that was done in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's over 5 years old, but was the crime that we can prove committed within the 10-year window? The answer is going to be yes, and it's going to end up screwing them. So I don't know. I just don't think it's good for guys to go on Vlad and all of these stuff and talk about like street shit. Like talk about your career, but don't go in there and talk about homicide, murders, what everybody else is doing. Because this dude just generally opened himself up. But y'all let me know what y'all think. And the last thing, I just thought about this too. If you haven't seen anything, why the hell would Diddy try to call you and say, all right, man, enough is enough? What reason would Diddy have to have someone reach out to you and say enough is enough? He called you and said enough is enough because he tired of you going on all these shows, doing all this damn talking, making this whole situation worse. And I'm going to assume that there was some money involved, because if you did it and you just calling people and like, hey man, don't talk, stop talking, you're doing too much talking. If you doing all that and making those calls and you're not offering any money, that's actually crazy work. Like that's actually the worst use. That's actually you not, or you either cheap as hell or dumb as hell. The name of the game is, hey, you aren't going to get something for nothing. People are going to talk. People want to write books. I just read an article of, it was a gentleman who worked for Diddy who saw a lot of crazy stuff when it related to how he treated women. And this guy was like, yo, even though he does bad things, hey, this is my employer. What can I say? This guy gives me money. He pays my bills. He helps me have the type of lifestyle that I want. The only reason that this guy actually ended up separating ways from working with Diddy, I can't think of his name. I need to look it up. But this guy's son, his son goes overseas and get arrested for murder, and he contacts Diddy and was like, yo, I need some money to get my son out. And Diddy was like, nah, I can't help you with that. And so the guy was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just quit and I'm gonna see if I can get some money by like writing a tell-all book or something like that. So it's I don't know. It's I don't know, like you got to grease some palms. You can't just be, if you're going to try to tamper with witnesses and you just asking them to stop talking out the kindness of your own heart and you already in trouble, that would be crazy. Unfortunately, that's all them guys have to talk. Otherwise, they won't be on the show to talk in the first place. And I'm sure they need that bag as well. And that's a fair point. I remember when I was a young attorney and I was doing defense work. When I was a young attorney and I'm doing defense work, they put all the new attorneys, you get 1 day a week. And if you're a new defense attorney, you get 1 day a week when you're in traffic court, which was terrible. And then you get 1 day a week where you do first appearances. And everybody who does the first appearances, and I told this story before, but anybody who does the first appearances, the same thing when Diddy had his bond hearing, there's only 3 things that happen. You get your next court date. The court finds out what you're doing about an attorney. You either hired an attorney or you broke as hell and we're going to appoint you an attorney, or you're going to go by yourself and probably get screwed. And we talk about your bond. Is there going to be a bond? What's the amount going to be? That's it. So I would give the same dumbass speech every time. And what they would do is, I thought I had a sheet of paper, but the inmates would come out and they just line them up on the road, maybe 10 or 12 at a time. First we do the guys, then the women come out. And they give all the inmates a sheet of paper and it'll say, name the family you have in the area. Are you in school? Do you work? What do you do in the community? It'll ask all of these questions. And that's actually smart because otherwise these guys will be talking your ear off. Could you tell them that I also go to community? Everybody go to community college according to those papers. So the inmates fill out those papers before they come. When I get in there, all of those papers are sitting on the desk. And then they start calling out the names. They'll be like, okay, Mr. Derek Smith. And I would find his paper. I'm like, okay. Then I stand up. Your Honor, Mr. Derek Smith informs me that he has long ties to the community. He's been a resident of this county for 17 years. He has substantial family members here. His mother, his children, his aunt, his uncles. He graduated from high school here. He's actually a member. They be embellishing like he's actually a member of the local AME Baptist Church around the corner, Your Honor. And he also notes that everybody say that they're starting a job next week. He also notes that he's starting a job at UPS next week, and he's currently enrolled in the local community college. So based on all of that, his substantial ties to the community, I'm asking the court consider setting him a bond. Understanding the nature of this bond, we understand that the court will need some security. However, we're asking to consider a bond of $30,000. It's enough to secure his presence for court. He doesn't have a history of failing to appear. He does have some prior contact with the court. None of it is violent. And he always appears for court, never had any failure to appear. I go through this whole ridiculous speech. And before I give that speech, I give everybody a speech. Hey, I'm your attorney. That person over there, that's Madam Prosecutor, or that's Mr. Such and Such, the prosecutor. They are not your friend for purposes of this. So I'm advising you not to say anything about the facts of your case because we are not arguing the facts of your case. Court date, attorney, bond hearing. That's it. The facts of your case will be argued at a later date once you confer with your counsel. Anything you say on this jail line about the facts of your case, Madam Prosecutor over there is going to be writing notes, and that statement will be used against you during your trial. Don't say anything. Do we understand? And they be sitting over there like, yeah, I understand. Soon as they call their name, man, he gave me a package and I was just driving it somewhere and I didn't know what was in it. And I'm just like, bro, didn't I just tell you not to tell anybody? And it was really frustrating. And one day the judge pulled me aside and he was like, hey, you're doing a good job fighting for your clients out there. He said, you can't get frustrated when they talk because, see, the thing is, you think that this is the first time that they're telling their story about what happened and they're implicating themselves even deeper in the crime. But the story that they just told on that bench right now, they told the police officer when he arrested him. They told the police officer when they was down there doing fingerprints. They probably told the other people who were in the holding cell with them. So the story that they're giving you now that they should not be telling isn't that the first time. So I say that to say, Wolverine, you're 100% right. This isn't the first time that they're telling these stories. This is just a different platform that they have to actually tell these damn stories on. Yeah, you can't do anything. You can't like if you can't even have eczema. If you got eczema and you keep your like medicated, you keep your medicated steroid lotion by the bed, everybody gonna be looking at you with the side eye. Yeah. I wish I could get a bag for an NDA too. Yeah. The grease that's on the stove, come on now, really? That's hilarious. But yeah, I just wanted to hop on here real quick and give an update. I actually got a really good video. I got a really good video from someone who's tied in, a really good email from someone who's tied in with all of the Tiffany Henyard stuff. And I want to do that video, but I'm trying to figure out how to structure that video so it's not confusing and convoluted, because it's confusing and convoluted to me. So I want to make sure I can present it in a way that it makes sense. But yeah, I got an email from a viewer who actually got documents via FOIA request related to Tiffany Henyard and whether or not her serving in both roles as the mayor and as the township supervisor is an actual conflict. And they actually provided me some historical documents where these types of issues relating to different employment were actually argued. But it's just so much fucking paperwork. So I'm trying to filter through the damn paperwork so when I present it to y'all, it's not fucking messy. Because if I just go ahead and try to shoot some shit, you can shoot from the hip because it's easy to do. But when it's document, if it was like a video, it would be easy. But when it's document heavy, I'm gonna have to put up documents, read them, talk about them, do some explaining. So one, I can track and follow what's going on, but make sure you all get the full picture. So I'm trying to think how I want to do it. I want to do it in a live, but it may be advantageous to pre-record it so I can edit it out so it's cleaner and it's more palatable. I don't know, but everybody liked the Tiffany Henyard live because people like seeing train wrecks. Diddy, Tiffany Henyard, Russell Simmons, and Bali. Hey, speaking of Russell Simmons and Bali, did y'all know when Diddy apologized for the Cassie video, he did so in Bali from Russell Simmons' house? I didn't know that. I didn't find that out today. I thought that was actually hilarious. But yo, that's it. I'm about to check out. I'm about to go down and watch what is it? A Quiet Place Day 1. That's gonna be the family movie for the night. And it's about 11 o'clock. So I'm gonna be sleeping about 35 minutes. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all take care. Be blessed. Have a safe weekend. And we may do something tomorrow night since I'm gonna be gone for a few days. We may do something tomorrow night. Y'all be safe. Stay blessed. Hey, appreciate everybody in the comments and the chat for tuning in. Y'all be safe. Peace.